And I want to pick up right here. You wanna delve into this where sometimes our loneliness can make us feel like we're the only one in the world.
Oh, that's a sad place.
We could go through some stuff that we feel if this only hadn't happened to me. The why me's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so loneliness can cause us to feel like we're the only one. And you know, when you're a believer, you can certainly feel like because we serve God, because we are trying to be this light, we're trying to be this disciple and everything, and I'm a Christian, I shouldn't feel lonely. You know, people will shame you into feeling that, hey, you shouldn't have these feelings, and that something is wrong with you. So you can fall into that category of feeling like you're the only one. That's when loneliness has gone into a place of kind of isolation. You stop listening to rational people. You don't seek out prayer. You just want to be by yourself. That's depression is really starting to sit in. And do you know, we used to be told when we were little kids that don't hang with the crowd, and you hang with the crowd, you get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But I have found that we get in more trouble alone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We get in more trouble in isolation because the things we think about
Yeah.
when we're alone is detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, that's why it's not good for us to be alone. Even in Genesis, God says it's not good for man to be alone.
Yeah.
So we need one another. That's Genesis 2 and verse chapter 2 and verse 18, where it says that it's not good for man to be alone. So we are to be interpersonal beings. We are to have interaction with other human beings. We need that to thrive. We need it. And so feeling like you're the only one and starting to isolate and not be around people, it's a very dangerous time to get to that place where you're kind of shutting down, walking away from people.
So I wrote down, do you think that the other person pulls us back, like if we're standing on the edge?
Yes, that's why we need another person.
Yeah.
We help back you down off from that edge.
Yeah.
We can back people down from places of suicide or giving up. And let me tell you something about suicide as well. Sometimes we may not be the person that gets a gun or a bullet or take the pills, but we just give up.
Mm.
And we just say,
Another form of
Lord,
suicide.
if you don't wake me up, it's fine. Nobody's going to notice.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to care. I can't take another hardship. We could just talk ourselves down,
Wow.
and that we could just slip away from here because we have given up.
Yeah.
And so that's another form of suicide, I think, that we don't even think about in terms of how people think when they have given up in their spirit man and they have given up in their souls. So that loneliness, we want to be engaged with people, that we talk them down out of that. And we say in Scripture, I speak life.
Right.
I speak life. And so that's what we're to be as another contact with people, that we speak life. Because negative thoughts that we think when we're alone is we think more negative thoughts than we do positive. Our internal dialogue can start to create an internal dialogue in us that causes us to be carried away with a whole lot of negative thoughts. We have between 16,000 to 50,000 negative thoughts.
I'm just sitting here looking at you upside your head, like, what?
The national science said we have between 16,000 to 50,000 negative thoughts.
That's crazy.
And 85% of them are repeated. So you have to think about it. When you think about when you get up in the morning and some of the things we say, and we don't think about it because we might say, I'm a hot mess. These people getting on my nerves. Those things like that. I really don't want to be here. I really don't, that self-image, that self-esteem.
You get off my street.
We have it. We'd be like, They're not going to like me. I'm not going to be included. Those are negative thoughts. That's a negative internal dialogue that we begin to speak to ourselves. We have between 16,000 to 50,000 negative thoughts, and 85% of them are repeated. So we got work to do, right? We got a lot of work to do to be able to start saying positive things. That's why I believe in, certainly I believe in scriptures. But I believe that there are affirming scriptures that we begin to need to have in our lives, that we have affirmations so that we can counter.
So what affirmation would you give me to say to myself if I was in that place? What can I say to myself daily?
I am smart.
I'm smart. Okay.
I am beautiful.
Okay.
I am created by God.
Mm-hmm.
I am available.
Yes.
I am a tool in his hands. I am free to love.
Yeah.
Those are things we can begin to say to ourselves, to affirm ourselves, and begin to speak back to ourselves. I am the apple of his eye.
Right.
I am the head and not the tail. Those are things that we have to say on a daily basis, whether things are good or bad or not. Don't wait till, you got into this very bad place, but when you can begin to have that positive eternal dialogue with yourself, you can begin to counter those negative eternal dialogues, and you can change that by constantly being conscious. It takes effort to be positive.
So, question.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I'm a fairly positive person, but I encounter somebody that's on the edge, that's negative, that's sad, that's depressed, and maybe they don't realize that that's what they are. How can I help them, or what can I say? I'm in a conversation with them, and I realize this. What can I do as a person? How do I help them? What do I say to not add to?
Let me tell you, the greatest thing you can do is to listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what's going on.
Okay.
Tell me, how do you feel? Mm-hmm. Tell me, why do you feel like that?
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to be heard. They're probably wanting to walk away, give up, and quit because nobody's listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
They feel invisible.
Okay.
They feel devalued.
Right.
And so when you can sit down and just begin to listen to a person, it's called ministry of presence.
Okay.
Remember, Job's friends came and all of them were giving him advice,
Mm-hmm.
telling him this, and this, and you had to have done something. And,
Right.
Sometimes that's wounding
True.
because we could say the wrong thing without knowing where that person's coming from.
Yeah.
The greatest thing to do is to sit and listen.
Okay.
To sit and listen.
So they don't want me to counsel them and let me tell you.
Sometimes that's not the time to
Mhm.
immediately, when they're on the edge like that,
Right.
you could say, tell me what's going on. Why are you here? And they may begin to talk and say, I'm here to listen to you. That is something that could wash over them, like someone is here
Yeah.
for me
Okay.
to listen to me. That's why they have great negotiators to talk people off of ledges.
Right.
And they come and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And then they begin to say, what can we do for you?
Right.
And so then they begin to make their requests. And then you start little by little doing what they ask.
Mm-hmm.
Within reason, or doing it because it's negotiation.
Right.
And then you gain their trust. By you coming and listening to me, if I've come venting to you,
Mm-hmm.
and I just listen instead of trying to solve your problems,
Mhm.
all of a
Let's fix
sudden,
it.
let's fix it.
Yeah.
And then, taking it on, and that person's like,
I didn't ask you that.
I didn't ask you that.
I've been there.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So the greatest thing to do is to be, what's going on?
Yeah.
Talk to me. I'm here to listen to you. And you can really back them down from some wounded and hurt places and say it from a place that you really do care.
Okay.
Because, don't say it just in the moment and then tomorrow you be like, girl, I don't have time for you,
You calling me. Right.
So, we want to be, and then after you have gained that trust, then it comes a time and a moment where you can then begin to give advice or counsel,
Right.
or send them in the direction if it's above your pay grade. You don't know what to do. You can begin to, first of all, know how to pray. I can intercede for you because I listened to you. I was listening to what you said. Now, how do I go in with God and begin to pray? How can I help this person? Then you start looking at maybe resources that can be tangible that can help them as well.
Right.
So I think that will make us better advocates and better disciples and better the church to help our loved ones when we can have a place of listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great place to be. We have to recognize we need the human contact, and for whatever reason, that's broke down in that person's life, and we're here to help them build it up. But what I like about coaching versus counseling is that just like a football coach or track coach or any type of athletic coach, they don't do the work for you. They guide you.
Right.
And they instruct you and what some possibilities to go. You do the work.
Right.
And so the coach doesn't play the game after he's giving you all the plays to play.
Yeah.
He don't go and run them.
Yes.
You
You got to do the work.
got to do the work.
Yeah.
And if you listen well, you become an excellent player, and even you may get to a place that you even excel where the coach is going, because you now have you've been given a set of skills where you know how to anticipate and play the game even better with the natural talent that you have.
Wow.
So as coaches, that's something that I think is much more better. I don't have to diagnose a person. I just have to come and say, what do you need help with?
Yes.
How can I help guide you? Or what can we do to help you organize it? Or do I just need to listen?
Yeah.
That's the greatest thing that you can do to help with someone who's dealing with loneliness or depression or anything. Just learning how to be a listener.
So I was writing down if we can go back just a little bit,
Mhm.
you have the inventory checklist.
Uh-huh.
So you said the first thing you need to figure out is, do you love yourself?
Uh-huh.
Well, I missed all the other ones. I didn't write them down.
That's okay. That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you love yourself? And then the other was, are you satisfied with your life?
Okay.
Are you satisfied with your life? Because you may find, I'm not really satisfied. And then the other was, are you miserable with your life? Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You know, you go through the motions. You're there, but you really are loathing. You're really angry.
Yeah.
And when we think of anger, we always think of it as the rageaholic. But a lot of time, anger is that quiet, silent, sulking. I'm getting even. I don't forgive you. Type of presence that's in a person. So you can have that miserable, we call them bitter people. They're bitter. But, or your life, is it miserable? So that's the inventory check.
Wow. Okay. All right. Look, as you work, I wrote those down.
Now, anytime you want to go back, we go back to it because, we like I said, being a coach, we want to give you the tools and give you something that you can work with. Sometimes our thoughts are scattered and we just can't pull them together. Someone could come in and just put some things, like you said, on your street, in your neighborhood, or your block that make you to think, hey, that impacted me to change because I had a thought that was either placed there or not. So I think that's real important. Again, thinking that you're the only one. I know that when I did go through a place of being single, I thought I was the only one.
Wow.
I thought I was the only one. And I began to hear people tell me that they had gone through similar situations of losing a marriage after a longevity. So I began to know that I'm not the only one and that God still had a purpose and plan for me in my life. And so that was something that was extremely life-giving for me because I had begun to walk in that place of loneliness and isolation that, hey, it's over. Anger. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I haven't lost a marriage, my only marriage that I'm in now. And so if I'm being transparent, I always say, If you walk over and leave me to that tomorrow, I'll be just fine.
Uh-huh.
But you don't know until you
You
get
don't
into
know.
that place.
You don't know.
They sound good.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we know how to be sheroes.
Yeah.
You know, S on our cape and all of that. But when the rubber meets the road, and you have to deal with yourself and
Yeah.
realities around you. You don't know what you're gonna do.
Right.
So it is something to not think about not being in your marriage, but just something to think about. I always say, what would I really do if I was in that situation? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a more accurate answer, because you might go bonkers now.
Right.
But you just never know. And I think it's important that we don't get so lofty and high-minded and think that nothing can happen to us. And I think I might have been there, in my life,
Right.
thinking that could never happen.
Happened to me.
Yeah, never
I remember.
happened to me. Yeah.
I was watching something,
Uh-huh.
and so this young lady was looking for this young man. She had been calling him on his phone and trying to text him and get in contact with him. It was a show,
Mm-hmm.
but the realness of it was so profound. I'm like, that's like a real life situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so she came to where he was at, and she was walking up to him. And so another girl interceded. She was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And so she was like, "Oh, I'm doing good." But she didn't catch on. The girl was trying to block her from going in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, not initially. So she said, "I'm doing good." And she said, "Oh, okay." And they chit-chatted a little bit. And so she began to walk in. She said, "Hey, wait." And she began to talk to him. She says to her, "I know what you're doing."
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, "Well, hey, listen, I know you're angry, I know you're upset, but just take a minute to yourself
Uh-huh.
and think about this.
Wow.
Do you really want to go in now
Mm-hmm.
with all the people around
Mhm.
and say whatever it is that you?" And so she thought about it and she said, "You know what? I was going to go in and embarrass myself."
Uh-huh. Yes, she was.
She said, "Yeah."
And she
And
talked her off the ledge.
Talked off the ledge.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She listened to her,
She listened to him.
and then she said,
Yeah, let me. You know what? You
Wait a
right.
minute.
I'll catch you later.
I catch
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'll do
catch you
that later. That's real talk there. That's real talk. That's how we need that, because when we just spontaneously combust and want to do things, had we had somebody
Yeah.
that listened first,
Yeah.
and then talked us down off that ledge, yeah, I'm telling you, it could really help us. Another thing about loneliness, it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
We don't just get there overnight.
Process.
So it's a process, kind of, through some of the things that we've already talked about. Loneliness. Do I love myself?
Mm-hmm.
Am I satisfied? Am I miserable? That's how you can find yourself in a lonely place. And sometimes we have lifetime influences where that's how you grew up. You just kind of grew up in a lonely situation in life, and loneliness is the only thing you really kind of know. And so sometimes you can inherit it because of dysfunction in families. And so sometimes that's something you've always had and didn't know it because it always existed in the home.
Yeah.
And so, the dysfunction. So it could be a lifetime of influences that's why we have to break generational curses.
Yes.
And so I call it inherited stuff, that we know how to come in and maybe break that thing down.
Right.
And break those barriers that have come in our lives, or even if we experience trauma. Trauma can cause you to feel like that you're in a place of loneliness, sickness. Somebody come out of this COVID-19 and forever could be changed to where they pick up patterns of OCD or agoraphobia and don't want to go out. There's going to be a huge gaping hole of mental health after this, because of the mental process that we are going to have to deal with. The post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
Post-traumatic stress is not just from like a injury like that, but because of a trauma that you experience, whatever. This is traumatic to some people.
Yeah.
And so, I've listened to some of the people that has been recovered from it. Wow, it's really amazing to hear their stories where they talked about where they went and where they was and what was going on, and that's gonna be trauma. They're gonna need probably mental health guidance and help. Now you're gonna be more afraid of crowds, so it's gonna change us altogether. How are we gonna function now for the rest of our lives? We're gonna have a major generation now that's going to be that went through COVID-19 worldwide.
Right.
How we're going to deal with this. I remember a long time ago when they first started putting arsenic in the pixie sticks, and that became a big phenomenon. And then that's where it all started. They started to put seals over the tops of aspirins, and
Wow.
those seals
Okay.
that those things started to break, which drove up prices. Which
Yes,
there is a ripple effect of what this is going to do, not mentally, socially, economically, politically, spiritually. All the systems that are in the world now have been shifted, and so we don't even know what it's going to do, because it's going to cause a lot of anguish and a lot of healing from
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
I was thinking about trauma
Mhm.
itself, and I was reminded of something I went through. And so, right before Hurricane Harvey, I had a car accident.
Mhm.
I'm not going to go too into details of it, because that's still like an open case.
Mhm.
And so I got hit by a cement truck. And so I go through the next couple of years, 17. I got to work. I had a family to take care of. I was on my way to work that day.
Mhm.
And so I finally had surgery last year in 2019. And so now we're getting down to the wire. And so I get some paperwork in, and I have to fill this out. And it's detailed instructions of what happened that morning for the accident. And so I'm reading through this paperwork, and I'm talking about trauma. And it didn't, and I read it and I said, oh, that's a lot. And I put it up and I had it like months before I was supposed to turn it in, but I put it away. And then I said, well, today's Monday, I'll look at it tomorrow. Before I knew it, was 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, and I was like, I still haven't done the paperwork. Why is it every time I pick it up to do it, I can't complete it?
Mhm.
And then I realized, Carol, that's trauma.
That's trauma. Yeah.
You have to
You're
relive
stuck.
it.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
relive it each time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
trauma is
Yes.
real.
Yeah. It'll make you be frozen. You
Yeah.
can't move. So that could be a place of loneliness and that isolation. We don't realize it. This is a traumatic experience that people are going through mentally. To wrap our mind around it,
Yeah.
we have experienced trauma, and so it's something we're going to have to really. We got to speak this. We got to do this today. We got to talk, and I hope that many are tuning in and listening and really having an inventory of what does this mean for us as a human soul and human being, what we're going through, not just the obvious things
Yeah.
that's going on, but the latter part,
Right.
after everything is over. What is normal going to be? How do we live? How do we pick back up
Right.
and go forward, so that's trauma. We're going to have to live through that. Now, half of the things I've mentioned here about loneliness is things that have happened to us, outside of us, out of our control.
Right.
Dysfunctions of families, the trauma that could have happened to us, low self-esteem. Sometimes those are inflicted on us that we have that, but here's some things I want us to consider, that we can have loneliness because we're just loners.
Explain that.
We could be people who just like to be by ourselves. And some people call them the lone wolf, or you're just socially awkward. We call them weird.
I don't like being in crowds.
I don't like being in
around
crowds.
people.
It could be that phobia, agoraphobia.
Okay.
Can't go outside at all. But they could just be loners. I just like to be alone.
Wow.
And though they like it, it kind of still saddens them. They want to be the one to get out and be the social butterfly. So they're perplexed within themselves. It's who they are and it's all they know themselves to be, but they kind of struggle between that. They're just socially awkward because when they go ahead.
Do you think they can think themselves into that situation or that mindset?
I think the negative thoughts that we think. I think that because you could say I'm going to this event, but you could start to negatively say what you think the dynamics are gonna be and what's gonna happen to the point that you don't go. So then you, instead of just trying to deal with that anxiety that's maybe going on to interact that way, we start to just say, I prefer to be home. I prefer to be alone.
Right.
But it really is probably something that you wish that you could do better by getting out. And so we could be loners and we could be socially awkward, or we do get out and we act peculiar, we act strange, that it's kind of hard to be around people.
Wow.
So that can create areas of loneliness, that social awkwardness, or poorly developed interpersonal skills. Okay, I'll just take a break and let you take care of it, and we'll be back.
We'll be right back.
All right.
Raise the praise.
Hey, it's Felicia.
Hey.